Alright, so here is my Milestone 3 recording. I'm going to go in here first to make sure. Of course I can't see my top bar because of this, so let's see. There we go. Alright, first things first, I need to go into my milestones here. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the different milestones that I set for myself. Oh, sorry, my mouse is a little sensitive. So, this I can complete because that is complete. So, the milestones that I set for myself were timer, tracks 1 through 4, 3 bridges, and then test runs for time. So, the timer, it's just an indicator for the player to let them know how much time is elapsed while they're racing. Initially, it's set up as an incremental timer, but it might change for a player to see a countdown timer just to say, okay, you have this long to complete this map or track. So that's something for possibly later. Next we have track 1. So I broke the track up into 4 different tracks, and I'll show you in Unity in a moment, but I broke it up into 4 different tracks because I found that in order to get the bridge or the bridges to look better while racing on the map, it was better to have separate tracks for each little section before you get to a bridge. This helped with the aesthetic feel of the game and the actual gameplay, I feel, and I'll show you some of that in a bit. For the bridges, I have 3 different bridges. So the first bridge is going to be a real basic bridge. It's going to have walls on the sides or some sort of thing on the sides to prevent the player from being able to fall off. I don't want the player to die, in a sense, too early in the track. I want to give them a feeling that, okay, there are bridges in the game that they might have to go over, so make them feel like they may need to be a little bit more cautious. But the second bridge and the third bridge, it's going to be like the first one, except there's no walls on the sides. It's more of just kind of a bridge that was set there in place and is sturdy enough for the player to go across, but if they're not careful, they could fall off the sides. And then the test runs for time, I did this because later on in the build, I'm going to set up to where I have different obstacles that come in front of the player, such as mine carts and falling debris and rocks and explosions and such. And to allow that to happen, I wanted to do it based off of a time event. And the easiest way I found to get that time was to do a time test run. So in this one here, I have my test runs. So my test runs went to each individual bridge. So I went to the first bridge, second bridge, the third bridge, and then I went to all the way to the finish. I gave myself 10 different tries on it, so I have different results for each. I don't have this sorted in any way. It's just kind of in order of how I did it. Now, when I did this run, I did it a total of 40 times because rather than stop and pause it at each time I got to like a bridge and then continue and go to the next one, I felt that might mess up on the time while I was playing. So what I did was I would get to the first bridge. The second I got to it, I would pause the game, which would pause the timer, giving me the exact time that I hit that bridge or arrived at the bridge. And that's why you have this set time. And then the next set of 10 that I did the same thing, except once I got to the first bridge, I just kept going and paused it when I got to the second, and so on. So I figured out what the average was based off of all these times with a simple formula. It's just averaging of all of these different cells here, and it told me the average for the time that it took to get to each of those spots. So that's some helpful info for me later. I found a couple other things that I'll just point out. So they have this really cool thing here that I found on a couple of forums called the Hermite Spline Controller. This is something that I might actually utilize for two things. One thing is it works really well when you're trying to do a quick camera pan around an area. And another way that it's going to be useful for me is I can use it for the train cars. I can set them up to follow an exact path, and they'll follow that path. So just a nice little tidbit for you guys if you didn't know much about the spline controllers. So alright, so let's get into the actual Unity here. So we will start off at the beginning like normal. So I've placed a few minor changes that you can see, just some aesthetic things. So I have right here the initial mine that the player would see as they come out of once the game starts. They're not actually coming out of the mine, they're still going to start here at this position, but I have a visual representation that when the camera pans around it can kind of see, oh okay, well hi, that's the coal mine that I must have come out of. And then what I did was I created the roads. So I have this little empty object here that I attached all 4 roads to. So you got the first road, which you can see here, and then let me do it this way, there we go. The second road over here, you can see I'm kind of highlighting a bit. Then we have the third road, and the final road, the fourth road. Now, for the roads to work properly, what I did was I went in and I, just like I did with the previous road, which is still technically here, I could turn it on and it'll show up kind of over where the other one was. I didn't take it out because I don't know if maybe there was going to be something that went wrong and I would still need to have it in there just in case. So it's still there just for now, but most likely will get removed at a later time. So what I had to do was utilizing my Easy Roads thing. Actually I can go in and just act like I'm creating another one. So I go into Easy Roads, New Road Network. This asks new terrains have been detected. It's just any modifications to the terrains that's going on. So yeah, I'm going to back up the terrain, and then no side objects are added, so don't want to import them. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Road type presets are available in this project. Do you want to import the road types? Sure. So what this is this is the Easy Roads tool set, the asset that I got. It's got a couple different options. So currently in this option, nothing's going to happen because I haven't selected anything. So what I would normally do is I would go to this tab here, which is the Add New Roads or Objects tab. And then I can go in and I can select the type. I can leave it as Select Road Type, or I can select any of these. Usually what I do is I just go and leave it as such, and then I add new object. And that allows me to go in and shift and click and place my roads. I'll actually go ahead and I'll do that up here just so you can get a kind of a view and understanding how it works. So shift puts a little pointer there, and then holding down shift still, clicking here, puts the next portion. So what I can do is I can actually zoom in on this and see the type of road that it's placed. So this is currently just a normal 2-lane road. All right. So what I can do now, and what I've been doing, is going in and select the kind of road that I want. So say I need a 3-lane road, then it would go ahead and change it to a 3-lane road for me. But what I used was the dirt road, which is dirt material right here. And then I also went in and I modified the width to 8, which made it a little bit wider. I felt it was a good size for the motorcycle. And then I could go through and I could continue to place my objects. But as you can see, it makes the road looks pretty decent, and I can go through and do stuff. So there's a couple other options here that allow me to do things. So I have the Follow Terrain Contours. When I check this box, what it does is it will go ahead and it'll look at the different bumps and bends and everything in the terrain. So like I got a couple of bumps here. It'll go ahead and it'll follow those bumps and put the road on those bumps. Now sometimes that's not really what I need or want, because it messes up the road at times. It'll put like a triangle looking like a point to the road at a bump, and it doesn't look good. So I have to go in and manipulate a few things here and there. But that's kind of what this down here is for, terrain deformation. The terrain deformation means that what it'll do is, as you're placing the track, like I can go through and I can, I gotta have it selected. Let's try that again. Okay. I can go in and I can say, okay, well, I need to deform the terrain. I need to build the track up, and it'll do that. So it won't show it here initially, but what it will do is, as I'm building, it'll point it out like this, and so I can still see under the terrain where it's at. I just have to continue building along with it. Once I'm done with that, what I can do is I can go in and do the build, which I'll tell you about in a minute, and it'll go ahead and deform all the track for me and everything. So if I uncheck that, it just puts it back to normal and makes sure that it would stay in the normal spot above the road, or above the terrain, so that it doesn't deform the terrain. Same thing with this. So if I have this down here and I uncheck this, I can say, well, I need to follow the contours of the terrain, and it'll go ahead and pop it right back up to the top of the terrain. So very, very useful tool, very helpful. This button here, close track, what that does is it goes ahead and it will make a loop for you after a certain amount of points have been placed. And then all you have to do is just keep placing points around how you need to, and it'll automatically have the end point connected to the start point for you. Pretty nice, pretty useful. For the cast shadows, that's going to primarily work with like your bridges and stuff. I haven't utilized it because I don't utilize the bridges that are built into this. And then I can add some different prefabs. So there's custom prefabs and there's dynamic. The dynamic prefabs are ones that are already put into here. Right now it's only showing default T crossing. There's other ways of adding more, so it's just a couple things for that. And then I can also add a few extra things like a camera flyover and such. This tab here is your prefabs. It's got your dynamic prefabs that I was talking about, and then it's got your custom prefabs. Useful ones, half pipe be pretty cool for this type of track, honestly. If I was trying to utilize more of a fun dirt track as opposed to a, oh crap, I need to get out of here because this place might explode type thing. But it also has these train crossing lanes here, which I think is very useful and going to be beneficial to me at some point in time, whether I use it in this map or a different map. So finally, what I would do is I can go in here, and this is the build settings. What it allows me to do is it'll allow me to remove the trees that are on the track. So if you have your terrain built up, you have trees and vegetation and stuff like that, what it'll do is it'll go ahead and remove those trees for you so that they don't end up in the middle of the road. Very, very useful. Makes it a lot easier so you don't have to worry about it yourself later on. Remove detail objects, it's the same thing. Then you can update your splat map. You can add side objects, vegetation to the track, and calculate road tangents. So all you do is you click build terrain here, and it would build this out and change the terrain how it needs to, and then you can finalize it and be good to go. So that's just the road thing kind of in a nutshell real quick. So I had to utilize that to create 4 different ones. The drawback to how I did it is I can only create one at a time. If I have one open that has not been finalized, I cannot go in and create another one until that one's been finalized. But it still worked out in the end. So next we have the bridges. I haven't put those together yet into a single empty object, but for now they are sitting here at the bottom. So this is bridge 1, and what it is it's a regular kind of bridge that multiple pieces put together, which is why it's like this. So I can go in and I can select the first point, which is this one on the right, and it's just a small portion. So what I did was I duplicated that 3 different times or 4 times, had a total of 4, and then I finished it off with one single one for here. And what that did was it gave it to where, you know, there's these side rails, and makes it a little bit more believable. I had thought about placing beams going from like a point here to the terrain on either side, but I have to still test a little bit to even see if that's needed, because I don't believe that it's actually seen by the player really. But if I do find out that it is seen by the player, then I will do most likely add that. So we go to bridge 2, and as you can see, it's similar to the first one, except it's missing the side rails. This here is where the player is going to be like, oh crap, there's no side rails. I better be careful when going over this bridge so that I don't fall to my doom. I did the same thing with the third bridge over there, and that bridge is tough, and I'll show you in a bit, because it's kind of turned at an odd angle, so I really like it. What I did here was I had to kind of blend it, like not really blend it, but you've got the dirt road that comes down here, and then you don't see it from this end. So when you're playing, you're not going to see it as you're going across. You're just going to see, oh, okay, well, here's the next part of the dirt road, and continue on. Did that so that it blended in well with the terrain and went into the game well and looked much better. A couple more things I added. I have not done anything yet with this waterfall, but that's definitely a work in progress. So I have this next kind of mine entrance, cave entrance over here that I added. I have to go through and clean up a few areas just to make sure they're not seen, and if they are seen, then the player can't get to them. But I added this minecart here. Currently it's set up to fall onto the track, and right now so that it ends up on the track perfectly, and then it just kind of sits there. It doesn't move yet, but the plan is to have it go along the track and kind of maybe go down a track, come across here. And I don't know if I'm going to have it just fall off the edge as if like the earthquake kind of took away the edge. Maybe there was another part of the bridge here. I can kind of add railroad tracks off in the distance or something. That's something that I'm still looking into, but that's currently what I have added into here. Yeah, so that right there is the majority of the stuff that I added. There's one more thing that I added that I'm going to show you in-game that I think is cool. Something that I want to have implemented, or I will implement as I go. And it's a screen shake. To really have a realistic feel for the game of, maybe explosions going off or some sort of earthquakes going on, I think having a minor screen shake would really add to it and make it believable. So what I can do here is I will go in and I'll kind of show you that, but I'll talk about a few more things first. So still have my regular bike here, and I have that timer that I was talking about. So currently it counts up. It's just generic for now until I go through and decide to change it later, but that's my current timer. Now, the screen shake that I was talking about, I actually have attached to this GUI button right here for now, just so that, one, it's a reminder for me, and two, it's a good way to test out while I'm riding along the course how well the screen shake works. And the reason I say this is I've noticed that if I'm going at a pretty decent speed, the screen shake will happen and the bike will continue on, and it'll look like the bike is getting farther and farther away. And then once the screen shake stops, it immediately catches up to the bike and continues on. That's not something that I really want to happen in the game. That's going to really mess players up while they're trying to play it. So that's something that I'll have to look into, how to make sure that it functions properly. But clicking it, this is kind of what it does right now. It's a little rough and very, very shaky. So I got to work on it a bit. You do it while you're playing. You kind of see, okay, well, yeah, he's going, and then he picks right back up behind him. So I don't want the camera to stop following the player, because that's what it's doing. Is it's at that point in time, it's stopping from following the player when it should continue. So racing along, you can see my bridge here going across, and those Those rails do prevent the player from falling off the edge. They have proper colliders attached to them. A few things with this map that I have found that I liked is it really has the feel of Excite Bike, and this right there, that jump, is what kind of gives me that feel of I'm playing Excite Bike again, but instead of it being a 2D version, it's actually a 3D version, which, I mean, how cool is that? So I get that feeling when I'm playing this, and I really enjoy that. It's pretty cool. So we get to the second bridge, and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to fall off the edge. You know, so there's that edge you got to be careful of. You continue on and go around the track, and we're coming up on the third bridge here. So I will show you what I was talking about with that third bridge being cockeyed or off. So like the way it's set up, I mean, it's a turn, so players really have to be careful at that point. If they're going too fast and they don't watch how they're doing their turns, they could wreck really easily and prevent themselves from getting far pretty quickly. So I like how that's set up, and I hope it works out well when I get more stuff added into it. But we come up to the end. I'll pause this run right as I get to the end. Alright, paused it, and the time was 3 minutes 13 seconds. So that time, I don't know if I had that time on my run. Nope, my previous runs now for myself, the highest was 2 minutes 25 seconds. So that one took quite a bit longer to do. Main reason because I took quite a bit of time in the beginning explaining the camera shake. So I think that's actually pretty good time. It's probably right around the 2-something mark that that I was at in my numbers. So it works out pretty good. So real quick, I'll go over some of these scripts here. Ooh, don't want to move that. Just want to move this. Okay, never mind. I won't move it. Alright, so what I did, first thing, I went in and I changed my animation script, and the reason for that is I was having problems with a specific point in the script, and I will talk about that right now. So, if physics.raycast, event point, position, direction, out hit 1.0, and bike script.speed is greater than 50. What it was doing initially was just this: hit collider route transform not equals transform.route. So it was basically saying if you're going faster than 50 speed and you run into an object or you run into a collider, perform the wreck animation. That's something that I did not want to happen, because there were certain points that I tried to create a trigger, and going through that trigger, even though it was a trigger, it was still a collider, so it would perform the animation. So what I did to fix that was I said, you know, if hit.collider is trigger, then do nothing. Just ignore it. Else if, do this stuff. So that really helped me out a lot. It fixed a few things which will help me with creation of my checkpoints for the player to go through. That way they're kind of respawn points, I guess. The next thing here is my timer script. It's pretty simple. I got my counter text. I got seconds and minutes, which you can see here. Grabbed them as a text component, and I placed it into Unity, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then minutes equals integer time since level load. Now I did time since level load because what that does is, say you have a menu screen and you're playing the game, you go to the menu screen and then you hit this level. Well, if I did the other time, I think is the delta time or something, what it would do is it would display this timer up here as whatever the time was when that game started, not when you started that level. So instead I did since level load, and it made it to where it automatically starts off at 0 for here when you start this level. Works out perfect. The next thing here is the camera shake script. The biggest things here really are the intensity of how the shake is, and those are the numbers that I have to go in and kind of manipulate and kind of work out to see what's going to work best. That, as well as trying to figure out how to keep it still following the player. That might be just something as simple as removing one of these. I have to look into it a little bit more. And then giving you your full-blown shake intensity and the decay of the intensity. Tutorial triggers I don't have to talk about. And bike control, I don't believe I did anything with that either, so we can just put that away. Alright, so for my timer here, canvas, image, no, panel, here we go. So panel, the panel is this grayish colored background thing that you see here. Right now it's stuck in this upper left corner because I anchored it there, and I think it works well. It's a good spot for now until I kind of manipulate things a little bit later. Alright, so you have your timer text here. This is just saying timer. It's just a text box that says timer right there. And then your actual time text right here is where I actually place the script. So right now it has in there 03:13 because that is what's displayed in the game right now. If I were to go out of it, it blanks out like this. So nothing in there. Now what that is doing is it's automatically, the script in here is already set up to where when the game starts, as you saw, it's going to go ahead and start the timer. I don't have anything in here, counter text, because I don't need it. It's kind of set to null because of, well, because it's attached to the object. So it's not needed since it's actually attached to the object. If it wasn't attached to the object, then I would attach the object to this script as if I had it on a like a game manager or something like that. And then it displays the seconds and minutes. So that's that portion. And then what I went through is I started to add some checkpoints. So well, I added one. There's nothing in it right now, but it's just a, come on. Yeah, I'm in the games view. There we go. All right. So my checkpoint got, oh, it's turned off. That's why. Okay, so let's turn that back on. So there we go. So that's my current checkpoint. It's turned off because what it does is it does manipulate the camera a little bit because you're going through a weird medium. So I'm going to adjust that later on. But for now, it's in this spot because that would be one of my first checkpoints. Because if for some reason the player misses the bridge and goes off on the left or goes off to the right, I don't want them to have to start all the way back at the beginning. I mean, they're already up to the bridge. They made a decent bit of progress. I mean, as you can see in my timer here, it took them about 30 seconds just to get to that point. So I want to give them some credit and say, hey, you know what? You made a mistake. Okay, here, we'll start you off right here in this area. So that's kind of what that is set up for now. And that's pretty much it. That's all that I've worked on for this checkpoint, or this milestone at this point. I will be working on more stuff most likely once this video is complete and uploaded, but just wanted to kind of give a point, show what I've done so far and the progress that I've been making, and continuing on. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.